Hello everyone, Interact back here again with another episode of Entity Education, and the first episode of Entity Education Extra Credit. This is going to be kind of a special episode, since it's covering the rework of the Nightmare, probably better known as Freddy Krueger, and not a new killer. Since the rework just came out about a few weeks ago, this video will be structured a bit differently than normal, hence why I added the extra credit to the normal title. Normally, in my videos for Entity Education, I'd cover just about everything about the killer, but since the meta hasn't fully shaken out, this is going to be more of just a shorter video focusing mostly on breaking down the numbers for what Freddy's new power and add-ons do. I will have a bit of brief coverage for some very brief tips for what to do with his new abilities, and maybe some perk suggestions for what you could run. As always, there will be timestamps up on the screen right now, and also down in the description of the video if you want to skip around to certain sections. Freddy's base stats are the same as his pre-rework variant, with a few caveats to it that I'll cover more in the power breakdown section. He still has his basic base killer stats, movement speed of 115% or 4.6 meters per second, and a terror radius / lullaby of 32 meters. Now let's get into the real meat and potatoes, Freddy's new powers, and oh boy, this is really just a loaded potato because they loaded up his kit for this rework. So strap in, boys and girls. We're gonna get real deep into it. Let's start off with his most basic and passive ability, his sleep cycles. It's not really what they're actually called in game, but I think it sounds way cooler than what the devs call them, the micro sleeps and then normal sleep or whatever. Let's start off by talking about what will happen to survivors who are awake first. Any survivor who is woke enough to post about their wokeness on Twitter or Instagram will hear a normal terror radius while they are within the default of 32 meters from Freddy. They won't be able to see Freddy normally, since Freddy is the master of dreams, not wokeness. If Freddy is farther than 32 meters from any survivor, he'll just be straight up invisible to them. If Freddy gets between 32 meters and 16 meters away from a survivor, they will instead catch glimpses of him. These glimpses will last for 2 seconds, and then have a 2-second cooldown time before they reappear. It isn't randomized like Spirit's passive phasing, it is a set time. This means that as soon as Freddy steps to a survivor, they'll see him for 2 seconds, then he'll disappear for 2 seconds, and then he'll reappear and repeat the cycle. As soon as Freddy steps to them and gets in their grill, I'm so white, why do I write these things? They will be able to see him as if he were a normal killer, when he is within 16 meters of them. Now let's talk about sleep. It's extremely important, and studies show you should strive to get at least 8 hours of restful sleep a night. But back to Dead by Daylight now. Passively, just by being Freddy, every survivor will gain 1 sleepiness per second, regardless of any other factors. It doesn't matter if it's a Dwight hiding in a basement locker, a Nia Urban evading even though the killer's on the other side of the map, or a Meg holding Sprint Burst right next to Freddy because she thinks that's the best way to use Sprint Burst. Sleepiness will be denoted to survivors by little clock icons on their status bar icon thing in the bottom left. I still don't know what they call that. And will only be a binary of a survivor is awake or a survivor is asleep for Freddy. Once a survivor hits 60 sleepiness, which means after 60 seconds, they will fully fall asleep, entering into Freddy's nightmare world. They call it a dream world, but it should really be a nightmare world, shouldn't it? All of that said, the easiest way to get a survivor to sleep is just by hitting them, because apparently slapping them with the knife glove thing is really soothing and just puts them to sleep like a baby. Who knew? Being asleep will change quite a few things for survivors. Instead of hearing the normal heartbeat within 32 meters, they will hear the famous Freddy lullaby in 2 dimensions, meaning it isn't directional anymore like it used to be, making it really hard for them to have any idea where you are if they can't actually see you. It doesn't increase in volume the closer you get, it's not directional, they just hear the children creepily humming. They will also be able to see Freddy as if he were any other non-stealth killer, meaning at any distance, and will start to become affected by his dream traps. Before we dive into Freddy's 2 types of dream traps and break them down, let's talk about how survivors are able to wake up from their slumber. Every time a survivor is put to sleep, they will have the aura of an alarm clock on the map that they can use to wake themselves up. Using an alarm clock will take a survivor only 2 seconds to do. However, the game will always choose the farthest alarm clock from the survivor when they fall asleep, meaning it will waste a bit of their time if they choose to run across the map to go get it. If a survivor wakes himself up with an alarm clock, they won't gain any sleepiness for 30 seconds, stalling out how long it will take them to passively go to sleep. This does not prevent you from just hitting them and putting them to sleep instantly though. Survivors can also wake up by failing skill checks, just like with the old Freddy. They can also have an awake survivor come and clap their hands and snap their fingers to the beat to wake them up. However, in the new Freddy variant, each time a survivor wakes another survivor up, it will take twice as long for that survivor who was just woken up to be woken up the next time. This means the first time will take 4 seconds, then it will take 8 seconds, then it will take 16 seconds, then it will take 32 seconds, then it will take 64 seconds, and at that point they're just going to probably find a different way to wake up. This pretty much means that survivors are going to be failing skill checks or picking up alarm clocks to wake up, since nobody wants to wait for over a minute for someone to just keep clapping in their face. Alright, now let's talk about those two different types of dream traps. Let's start with the default one that Freddy gets without using any add-ons. By default, Freddy has 8 dream snares that he can place at any time during a match by holding mouse 2 by default, PC of course, to charge up the dream snare. After charging up for at least 0.75 seconds, he will place it at the indicated location on the ground in front of him. If Freddy already has 8 dream snares out, which is his maximum, much like the Hag, it will just erase the oldest remaining dream snare to place a new one. Do note, Freddy does not have a cooldown after placing a dream snare. He is not slowed while placing a dream snare. There is no penalty to placing a dream snare. You can do it mid-chase. You can do it for fun to farm points. You can do it at a loop. You can do it in the open if you feel like it. It's actually amazing that they designed a killer that doesn't have like a 5-second cooldown after using their power. Who would have guessed they could actually have done it at behavior? Anyways, after another 0.75 seconds, the dream snare will become active, and any survivor who is asleep will be able to trigger it by stepping on it. After they step on the dream snare, a few things will happen. The dream snare will become tripped, as evidenced by the creepy bloody hands that are trying to reach out and touch Faith, and the trap will remain active for 5 seconds. Making any survivor who touches the active snare become slowed by 15%, be forced into medium vaults and be unable to fast vault, and also make them scream out, giving Freddy the scream notification. The 15-second slow and medium vault will remain on the survivor for 3 seconds, and the scream notification will remain up for the baseline for all notification bubbles of 5 seconds. The other type of dream trap is dream pallets. By equipping certain add-ons, which we'll cover in just a few minutes, Freddy will completely replace his dream snares with dream pallets. Having both, while probably being very fun to play, would be really overpowered. Dream pallets are pretty much what you expect them to be by the name. They're fake pallets. By pressing mouse 2 by default, once again on PC of course, you can place a dream pallet at any spot that a normal pallet could have spawned, or any spot where a pallet has been used up and broken. You cannot place it where a pallet has been dropped and not broken by kicking it yet. You do have to use your little manlet feet to break the pallets. You cannot use dream pallets to shortcut breaking them. That would be just a little strong. You can place dream pallets at a maximum range of 12 meters from the placement. The indicator for where you can place a dream pallet will show up at a maximum range of 16 meters, and the auras of already placed dream pallets will be shown to you within 24 meters. This does mean that you can place dream pallets through walls, ceilings, corn, etc., as long as you're in range and you have the indicator showing up on your screen. If you do place a dream pallet at a broken pallet spawn, all of the debris will get removed, meaning survivors won't be able to spot that there's broken wood scattered about and know that it's a fake pallet. Keep in mind, however, that only survivors who are asleep will actually be able to even see dream pallets or interact with them. Any awake survivor won't pay them any mind since, they can't see them. But wait, there's more! Baseline, Freddy also has another ability, called Dream Projection. After a cooldown period of 45 seconds at the start of a match, Freddy can target any incomplete generator around the map and teleport to it after a 3-second channel time. Once again, thank you behavior. You are able to move around at full speed while channeling your dream projection. There is no slowdown, there is no cooldown nonsense like other killers' powers. The generator that you're going to teleport to will have a flaming arrow icon above it, so you'll know which one you want to go to. You'll see the flaming arrow, and you can target that generator and teleport to it with ease most of the time because sometimes they overlap. While you are channeling your dream projection, the generator that you are teleporting to will start spewing out blood, and a blood husk of Freddy will spawn out of the ground at the generator, which you will replace after you finish the channel, meaning that survivors will kind of get ample warning if they have their monitors turned on that you're about to teleport to the generator right in front of them. You can cancel your dream projection at any time during the channel time, and hey, there's no slowdown for doing it, yay! This will incur a 10-second cooldown, however, meaning you can't just spam blood spewing out of every generator on the map to kind of spook survivors to death. If you do teleport successfully to a generator, meaning you do the full 3-second channel, the spawn seems to be kind of randomized, or maybe it's based on the angle of the generator. I'm not really sure. I haven't found anything in the code to indicate it. Just know that it's a little disorienting, and you will once again incur that 45-second cooldown timer. By default, however, the cooldown of your dream projection is reduced by 15% per sleeping survivor, meaning that if you have every survivor asleep, you can have insane map pressure with a cooldown of only 18 seconds to dream project. Now let's talk about Freddy's new add-ons. Well, new in the sense that they have new effects. They're still the same names and icons. They did change like one rarity, but let's just start. We'll start at the comment tier with Wool Shirt. Wool Shirt will slightly increase regression penalties for failed skill checks for sleeping survivors. This means an extra 4% regression penalty, bringing it up to 14% regression, since the base regression penalty for missing a skill check is 10%. Next up is Sheep Block. The entire block cycle is just god-awful. They should really rework it or just delete them all. Who cares? Sheep Block will give any survivor who interacts with one of your dream traps the blindness status effect for 30 seconds. I'm just going to move on. Following that, we have the obligatory blood point add-on Kids Drawing. Kids Drawing will gain you an extra 200 blood points towards deviousness whenever a survivor triggers a dream snare, at the cost of considerably reducing the slow of your dream snares. This means that your dream snares will have their slow reduced by 10%, bringing them down to 5% of a slow instead of the normal 15%. This add-on is not even so bad it's funny, it's just bad. And the final common add-on is Garden Rake. Garden Rake will simply change your power from dream snares to dream pallets and give you the base of 10 dream pallets to work with. Moving on to the uncommon tier, we have another dream pallet add-on, Prototype Claws. Prototype Claws will replace your dream snares with dream pallets, giving you 10 of them, as well as give you the aura of any survivor who drops a dream pallet for 4 seconds. Following that, we have Outdoor Rope. Outdoor Rope will moderately reduce survivors' action speeds while asleep. This means a 6% reduction to their action speeds for repairing generators, healing, or sabotaging while they are in the dream world. Next up, we have Nancy's Sketch. Nancy's Sketch will slightly reduce your dream projection cooldown for each sleeping survivor. This means an extra 2% reduction, or 0.9 seconds of cooldown reduction for each survivor who is currently asleep, for a maximum of an extra 8% reduction, or 3.6 seconds off of your dream projection cooldown. This does stack with the passive 15% per dreaming survivor, if you're wondering why the numbers seem very low. Then we have Green Dress, which is an uncommon add-on, meaning the icon is actually yellow, but just don't question it, please. The yellow Green Dress will slightly increase regression penalties for failed skill checks for sleeping survivors, as well as show you the aura of any sleeping survivor who fails a skill check for 3 seconds. This means, once again, that failed skill checks from sleeping survivors will have an extra 4% regression penalty applied to them, and obviously you'll see the aura of the failure of a survivor for 3 seconds. And the final uncommon add-on is another one of the useless block add-ons, Cat Block. Cat Block will make it so any survivor who interacts with one of your dream traps will suffer from the hemorrhage status effect for 60 seconds. What a waste of breath. Let's move on to the rare tier where we start off with Unicorn Block, another useless add-on. Woo! Unicorn Block will make any survivor who interacts with one of your dream traps suffer from the blindness status effect for 60 seconds. Honestly, someone at Behavior hasn't really gotten the memo that no one cares about blindness, and it's the worst thing, and they need to stop putting it on add-ons because no one cares. Following that, we have Paint Thinner. Paint Thinner will replace your dream snares with dream palettes, and also give you the aura of any survivor who interacts with a dream palette for 6 seconds. Next up, we have Nancy's Masterpiece. Nancy's Masterpiece will moderately reduce your dream projection cooldown for each sleeping survivor. This means a 3% reduction, or 1.35 seconds of cooldown reduction for each survivor who is currently asleep, for a maximum of 12% extra reduction, or 5.4 seconds, on top of the base 15% per sleeping survivor. Then we have Jump Rope. Jump Rope will considerably decrease survivors' action speeds while asleep. This means a 9% reduction in their action speeds for generator repairs, healing, or sabotaging hooks, since that's all that action speed actually affects, while they are asleep and in the dream world. And the final rare add-on is Blue Dress, which of course has a green background because stop questioning. The blue-green dress will slightly increase regression penalties for failed skill checks for sleeping survivors, as well as show you the aura of any sleeping survivor who fails a skill check for 4 seconds. This once again means an extra 4% regression penalty for failing skill checks while asleep. And yes, the only difference between the yellow-green dress and the blue-green dress is a 1 second increase in aura. I wish they were a little bit more inventive with these ones. Moving on to the very rare tier, we get unique add-ons. Woo! We start off with Swing Chains. Swing Chains will make any survivor who is awake or asleep have a slightly reduced action speed, and then suffer from an increasing penalty to their action speed based on how many survivors are asleep. Essentially, this is the add-on version of Thanatophobia, but for sleepy people instead of bleeding people. This add-on is either worded improperly, or just not working as intended. Currently, as of the time that I tested it, because the code was a bit confusing, so I did want to do a test, the first portion of the add-on, the part that says any survivor who is awake or asleep will have a slightly reduced action speed, it doesn't work. The increasing penalty, however, the other portion, for each sleeping survivor is 3% per sleeping survivor, up to, obviously, 12% reduced action speed if all survivors are asleep. Next up, we have Pill Bottle. Pill Bottle will reduce the distance at which survivors will see the glimpses of you, down to between 12 and 24 meters, make you invisible if you're farther than 24 meters from the survivor, and also make you invisible to any awake survivor if you're carrying a survivor on your shoulder. And then we have Class Photo. Class Photo will make you unable to cancel your dream projection once you start channeling it, meaning you can't mind game with it anymore. However, it will make every generator on the map spew out blood fountains and make the blood husk not spawn. So you trade the mind gaming of being able to cancel your dream projection with just they don't know which one you're going to. It's pretty cool, but being locked into the projection kind of sucks if you target the wrong generator. And the final very rare add-on is Z-Block. My poor sweet boy. What you did to deserve this, I don't know. Z-Block will make it so that any survivor who interacts with one of your dream traps will suffer from the hemorrhage status effect for 60 seconds, even if they're healthy. This means you can make healthy survivors bleed, which is kind of neat and all, but why should anyone care? They killed my poor boy. I used to love this add-on. Let's talk about Freddy's ultra rare add-ons. We'll start with the completely reworked one, Red Paintbrush. Red Paintbrush will make it so all survivors will start the match asleep, and also be unable to wake themselves up from failing skill checks. This add-on is extremely powerful, because it means they can't fail skill checks, so they have to either find someone who is already awake to snap them out of the dream world, or go pick up an alarm clock and run all over the map, finding their alarm clock, which also wastes their time. It's good at wasting time. And Freddy's other ultra rare, Black Box, literally had just 4 words added to it. I'm not kidding. You can double check if you don't believe me. Black Box will make you obsessed with a single survivor, make them start the match asleep, and then the 4 extra words make them unable to wake up through any other means. I mean, it's a good add-on, but I mean, it's kind of uninspired, I guess. Now let's talk about tips for playing Freddy. Normally, I'd have a pretty heavy section here that would take up a large portion of the video about the best way, in my opinion, to play the killer that I'm covering and go into some, little known facts about maybe some weird interactions. But honestly, I haven't had even remotely enough time to play Freddy to feel confident enough to actually tell anyone how to play him. I can give a few general tips that are new to his new kit, though, so I'll quickly cover those. If you're running Dream Snares, which honestly I think you should be, since they're more consistent than Dream Palettes, you can use them to cut off loops and basically play as if you're the clown as far as cutting off loops, and if you've never done that, the clown cuts off loops real easily. The benefit to being Freddy over the clown, however, is that you don't get a slowdown when placing a Dream Snare. There's no cooldown, there's no reload time, there's no slowdown while reloading, there's none of that nonsense. Pretty much when you're using a Dream Snare, just place them like you would the clown at the opposite ends of a loop from the palette. So say you're standing on the palette, they're at the other end, you place the Dream Snare near the other end where they are, and then chase them through the loop like normal. They'll get slowed on that end by the Dream Snare, and probably either you hit them or they panic and drop the pallet, and then you break it and then hit them. He's really good at getting through loops with Dream Snares, which is why I think they're better than Dream Palettes. Dream Palettes have the whole gotcha factor, but Dream Snares are more consistent and more powerful. Dream Projection is really strong for getting around the map and keeping map pressure insanely high. If you even just suspect that survivors are on a generator on the other side of the map, just use it to get there. The cooldown is kind of heavy in the beginning, but once survivors start getting put to sleep, you'll see it getting noticeably lowered. You can also use it as a mind game mid-chase, since there's no movement speed penalty for channeling it or canceling it. If a survivor's running towards a loop near a generator, start channeling on that generator. Then either go through with it if they aren't looking behind them and they don't notice that you're doing it, and then you just pop out of the ground and surprise bitch, slap them in the face, Or you can cancel it if they are looking behind you or they notice the generator and they get spooked and run back towards you. Just cancel it and then slap them again. And I mean, those are pretty much the quick basic tips I can give. I'm not going to go into full detail because he did just come out and I don't feel confident about it. Just make sure that you're using every bit of your power to their fullest. Keep practicing, and you'll probably see some good results with new Freddy. It's refreshing that they didn't do what they normally would have done, which is make him slow down while he's placing Dream Snares, or have him have a cooldown after placing it, or make him stand still while he's channeling Dream Projection, something like that. It's a breath of fresh air in killer design, and it really makes me hopeful for the future killers that they put out, and also the future reworks that they've talked about doing. Since I haven't actually covered Freddy's teachable perks in any video yet, since I skipped the video on Freddy because I knew the rework was looming, I'll go over them really quickly. Feel free to skip this section if you already know what his perks do. At level 30, you'll unlock the teachable for the perk Fire Up. Fire Up will give you a stacking 3/3.5/4% buff to your speed for picking up survivors, dropping survivors, breaking pallets, kicking generators, or vaulting, each time that the survivors complete a generator. This perk is pretty much just a bad version of Brutal Strength and Bamboozle packaged together with some pickup speed. The pickup time is nice for stopping flashlight saves, since it messes with survivors' timings that they have internally, but just look at a wall if you're worried about getting flashlight saved. At level 35, you'll unlock the teachable for the perk Remember Me. Remember Me will make you obsessed with a single survivor. Every time you hit the obsession, the opening time of exit gates will be increased by 4 seconds, up to a maximum of 8/12/16 seconds. The obsession, however, is not affected by the exit gate opening time increase from your stacks of Remember Me. This perk got probably one of the biggest nerf bats I've ever seen in the endgame collapse patch. Rest in peace, little buddy. We had some fun times. And finally, at level 40, you'll unlock the teachable for the perk Blood Warden. Blood Warden will make it so once the exit gates are opened, not powered, opened, you'll be able to see the auras of any survivors located in the exit gates, and your Blood Warden will light up. Also, once per match, while Blood Warden is active and lit up, meaning the door is actually already opened, if you hook a survivor, the entity will block both exits for 30/40/60 seconds. This perk is even harder to get to work than it used to be, because with the endgame collapse patch, everyone just kind of 99% exit gates, which counters Blood Warden. Now normally in this section I would cover a perk build for new players, assuming that they only have the perks for Freddy and the base killer perks, cover the meta perk build, cover a that build, and then cover some meme builds. But since the rework hasn't really had time to settle and find its true meta build yet, I'll just kind of shout out some perks I see people using a lot, and perks that I've found to work really well on Freddy as well. We'll start off with a few super obvious ones that are just strong on every killer. Barbecue and Chili, Hex Ruin, Nurse's Calling. These are all really good on basically every killer in the game. It won't hurt you to run them if you feel like it. Barbecue and Chili does get a special shout out for the new Freddy, however, since if you see the aura of somebody working on a generator, you can just dream project to it and start a chase like 3 seconds after hooking a survivor, which is insane amounts of map pressure, making it super good on top of the fact that you should be running it because the auras are already stupidly good and the extra blood points is already stupidly good. Speaking of having the auras of survivors on generators shown to you when your barbecue procs, Pop Goes the Weasel has been seeing a lot of play on Freddy recently, since, as I said, you can literally just teleport to a generator 3 seconds after hooking somebody. If you see someone working on it, or you've seen it previously and you know that it's like at 80%, or you suspect someone's working on it, just hook someone, dream project, kick it with Pop, regress at 25%. And since Pop doesn't have an actual cooldown on it, you're really only limited by your ability to hook survivors and your dream projection cooldown, which gets really low the more that survivors stay asleep. So Pop Goes the Weasel might even be better than Hex Ruin on the new Freddy, if you're able to make it work very, very consistently. Another perk I've heard a lot of talk about on new Freddy, for pretty much some of the same reasons, is Discordance. If you hear it go off, dream project to the generator, and then you know you're stopping at least 2 survivors from working on generators for at least a little bit. You can get one in a chase, maybe you can get a grab if they're really just not paying attention. It's really, really good map pressure, and it gives you an idea of where you should be dream projecting. As I said, if you're running the dream snares, loops are pretty easy to just kind of chew through, since you can play like a clown that's allowed to pre-place his gas traps, and you don't have that reload speed or cooldown or slowdown or whatever. Because of this, running something like Brutal Strength to break pallets can be really good, since survivors might be dropping them early because they're slowed and kind of just afraid that they're going to get hit because they're not going to make it to the pallet fast enough. So they drop it early, break it with Brutal Strength, continue chasing. I've personally really enjoyed running Save the Best for Last on New Freddy, since you don't really need to run the Enduring Spirit Fury combo. You can if you really feel like it, but you don't need to. If you're using Dream Snares, since loops get shooed through pretty easily. The decreased cooldown on hits, plus the fact that you can just kind of burn through those loops easily, plus the fact that your map pressure is pretty insane with Dream Projection, means you can get 8 stacks real stupid quick, and then just kind of slash through every survivor on the map easily. And you aren't too weak to need to rely on Enduring Spirit Fury, so you do have some perk slots open. A bit of a spicy meatball that I've seen people running is Make Your Choice. So once again, it all comes back to Dream Projection just being bonkers, man, I swear. If you hook a survivor near a generator, walk away. Once you hear the unhook happen, just dream project to that generator and instantly down the savior. It can be a little bit finicky on maps that have really bad hook spawns, or if generators are getting finished really quickly and you're kind of getting cut off from where you can make Your Choice work with Dream Projection. But it's still a really strong perk, because 1 minute of exposed on a savior is a lot of time to be able to catch them. And the final one that I'll give like an actual shout out to and go into detail is Infectious Fright. This does actually work with both your Terror Radius and your Lullaby, meaning you can find both awake and sleeping survivors. If you're running a punishing build for being asleep, like you have both rope add-ons or something, it can be really helpful for keeping survivors asleep by just chain hitting them. It also works extremely well when combined with high stacks of Save the Best for Last, so run those two together if you feel like it. And just to quickly wrap up this segment, strong perks like Enduring, Spirit Fury, Hex on the Ground, whatever, they're all still worth running if you want to. The best part about a strong killer, like how New Freddy has kind of turned out to be, is that you can kind of run whatever you want because the gaps in your kit are pretty small compared to weaker killers who need to plug the holes in their kits with perks. Because you don't really, like, you're not lacking in map pressure, you're not lacking in loot pressure, you're not lacking in whatever, you don't really need to, like, super plug holes in your loops with Enduring Spirit Fury like you do on, like, Wraith or Trapper or whatever. You can just kind of run whatever you want. It's the Wild West, man. You know, live it up. And now, crazily enough, there is actually a that build for me to cover that I've seen floating around for New Freddy. That build, if you're new to my channel and or this series, is a build that just kind of sucks the fun out of any match that it's being used in, either for the killer or for the survivors or for both. The That build for Freddy runs something along the lines of like Barbecue, Hex Ruin, Thanadophobia, Sloppy Butcher, and then the add-ons Swing Chains and Red Paintbrush. This build basically just exists to make everything miserably slow for survivors. While it is a very effective build, since survivors will be slowed on their healing speeds by 48%, which is almost self-care speeds, if they're all asleep and all injured, which kind of just encourages them to remain injured and asleep, and it will also slow their generator repair speeds by up to 28% if they're all asleep and injured as well. And with Red Paintbrush, the only ways they'll have to wake up are by waking one another up, which takes double time every time they do it, or by running around and grabbing clocks, which wastes their time by running around the map, meaning they might just stay asleep for a fair amount as well, so they're asleep and staying injured as well, so they are getting those maximum slowdown times. And then you have Barbecue on top of that, giving you the auras of people who are slowly trying to just get the generators done because they just want to leave and get on with their next match. Just dream project over and just down them easily because they're staying injured because their healing speed's freaking 48% slower. While I said this build is extremely effective, it's just going to be pretty much a boringly slow death for the survivors. As I always say when I talk about the That builds in my videos, I can't stop you from running it. You can do it if you feel like it. It's allowed, it's in the game, it's all kosher. You're not cheating. Just understand that it's not fun for survivors. They're pretty much just not going to want to play the game. I wouldn't be surprised if you get like a lot of angry comments in the aftergame chat or on your profile, or you just straight up run into people disconnecting when they see it. And that's it for this episode of Entity Education Extra Credit, covering the new and improved Nightmare, probably better known as Freddy Krueger. If there are any reworks or small number changes to killers, like with the Wraith Cube thing that they came out with a while back, I expect kind of smaller videos like this, compared to the videos on newer killers where I go like super in-depth on everything. As always, social media stuff up on the screen right now, down in the description if you want to check it out. Thanks as always for watching, guys. I will catch you in the next episode, which will be a full video covering my personal son, my spooky masked boy, Ghostface. I'll see you in that one, guys. Thanks for watching as always. Thank you for all the support. I do appreciate it. Goodbye.